The target of the Confederate assault on July 3rd was the center of the Union line, commanded by General Hancock. Most historians suggest the point of attack was to be aimed at a copse of trees on Cemetery Ridge. Porter Alexander states that the spot chosen by Lee was the wrong one. The point selected for Pickett's attack was very badly chosen, almost as badly chosen as it was possible to be. Alexander points out that the charge took place at the shank of the fishhook, thus exposing the Confederate line to an enfilading fire from the whole length of the Union line. Additionally, the shank bent slightly forward from Little Round Top, subjecting the assaulting column to rifled cannon fire. Since the advance had very little cover and no support from artillery, the spot chosen was tactically a poor choice. Alexander suggests a better option. I think any military engineer would, instead, select for the attack the bend of the fishhook just west of Gettysburg. There, at least, the assaulting lines cannot be enfiladed, and on the other hand, the places selected for the assault may be enfiladed and upon shorter ranges. Again, there the assaulting column will only be exposed to the fire of the front less than half, even if over 1/4 of the firing from upon the shank. Alexander argues that if the attack took place at the bend of the fishhook, the Confederates would be exposed to much less Union artillery fire, and instead of the Confederate line being subjected to an enfilading fire, it would be the Federals. He thought these reasons sufficient to warrant a different strategy. However, he did admit that he never personally examined the ground. The evening following the repulse of Pickett's charge, Alexander relates a story told him by General Imboden about an encounter with General Lee after the charge. Lee lamented to Imboden, "Yes, it has been a sad day to us. I never saw troops behave more magnificently than Pickett's Virginians did today upon that grand charge upon the enemy. And if they had been supported as they were to have been, but for some reason not yet fully explained to me were not, we would have held the position, and the day would have been ours. Too bad, too bad, too bad." Apparently Lee thought that Pickett's division was to be supported by additional troops. Alexander identifies who he believed these troops were. Who were they? Wilcox's brigade, 2,000, and Anderson's division, 6,000. There can be no other answer. Official reports are inconclusive. However, it seems some brigades from Anderson's division were to support Pickett's right flank. They were only sent forward, however, after Pickett's brigades had already been repulsed. This denied flank support to those troops. Alexander notes that the charge was not defeated from what it faced in front, but was overwhelmed on the flanks and by reinforcements. Alexander, after citing a report by Union Colonel Hall's account to justify his claim, continues, "This is a plain confession that both Hall's and Webb's brigades were defeated and were being driven when their reinforcements saved them. Had 5 more Confederate brigades been at hand, we would certainly have stood some chances." Alexander does not place blame on who was responsible for delaying the start of the support column, but he does say they should have been started simultaneously with Pickett and Heath's men. This would have increased the storming column from 9 brigades to 14. Alexander was not sure if the added brigades would have ensured success. However, he does ask a question. Could we have had in that column any further supports than those 5 brigades? He suggests that Ewell could have supplied 8 brigades and 3/4 of his artillery. Then Alexander speculates on what would have happened if Ewell's brigades were combined with the following: an assault delivered upon the bend of the fishhook, the artillery of all 3 corps handled as one mass to enfilade the Federals, and if he had the use of the missing howitzers. Alexander writes, "We would have practically forged our storming column into a sort of armor-piercing projectile, and could surely have driven its head a long way into Meade's body, and stood a fair chance of precipitating a panic. What we did under all our disadvantages with only 9 brigades in the storming column surely justifies sanguine anticipations of what might have been done with 22 at a more favorable locality and with more artillery." Both Lee and Alexander thought proper support might have produced a different result. We will never know. If Alexander was right and Lee expected support for Pickett's division, why were Lee's orders not carried out? Alexander believes there was a lack of well-trained staff officers. Somebody on the general staff should have made sure that Lee's orders were carried out as directed. Alexander states, "Finally, I again connect our failure in this battle with the deficiency of well-trained staff officers. Not only do we lack expert military engineers, but the general weakness of staff force had, I think, the effect of having many things done by verbal instructions which should be put in writing." To this day, historians still debate over what General Lee meant when he gave the verbal order to General Ewell, "Take that hill, if practical." Alexander, however, attributes the lack of specific orders to perhaps a greater blunder. I believe nobody was directly designated to launch Anderson's division to Pickett's support, and Wilcox was left to judge for himself. Had a written order given the details of that charge, there could have been neither omission or misunderstanding on that important matter. Again, Alexander wasn't sure if the added troops would have changed the outcome, but surely the lack of proper orders didn't help the Confederate cause. Alexander's final reason may be the overall reason for the Confederate failure at Gettysburg. From Stuart's absence to the failure of Pickett's charge, a lack of superior high command decisions seemed to cripple the Confederate cause. How much of the Union victory at Gettysburg was a result of superior federal staff and field officer coordination is up for speculation. Alexander has given us much to think about as we consider what went wrong for the Confederates. However, as with any battle, the reasons for a victory or a defeat do not usually consist in something as simple as one isolated event, but in a series of human decisions or lack of them. When looked at individually, events may not seem important, but when taken as a whole, they shed light on what really happened.
"'Tis the song, the sigh of the weary. Hard times, come again no more. Many days you have lingered around my cabin door. Oh, hard times, come again no more. Oh, hard times, come again.